On a sunny day, the air was filled with cheerful laughter as Peppa Pig and her friends gathered at the splendid park that lay near their school. The playground was buzzing with excitement, clinking swings, and the rhythmic squeak of the seesaw. Somewhere in this harmonious din, Peppa's heart held a special thrill, for today was no ordinary day. Her Majesty, the Queen, had unexpectedly decided to visit their school. Peppa could barely contain her excitement as she pushed an ecstatic George on the swing. Next to them, Susie Sheep and Rebecca Rabbit were busy playing a friendly game of tag. The moment finally arrived. The school gates swung open and the Queen herself, in all her stately bearing, stepped gracefully onto the playground. Queen Elizabeth was as dignified as ever, adorned in a resplendent floral dress and her trademark pearls. The children gathered around, their eyes wide with admiration and mouths agape in awe. "Hello, children," the Queen greeted warmly. As the children respectfully curtsied and bowed, Peppa's eyes gleamed with both admiration and mischief. The Queen was about to become part of their playground mischiefs. With little prompting, Peppa invited the Queen for a friendly game of hide and seek. "Your Majesty, would you like to play with us?" she asked, her voice tremulous with excitement. The Queen's eyes twinkled with merriment as she graciously accepted. "I would be honored, Peppa dear." Amid squeals of delight, the game commenced. Her Majesty surprised everyone by slipping behind the slides with a spryness that belied her royal stature. Peppa counted diligently before embarking on their search. Each child tiptoed, giggling as they peeked around corners and behind benches. Finally, it was George's triumphant squeal that uncovered the Queen, still mirthful, tucked behind a broad tree. Her regal laughter mingled with the children's, knitting a memory the children would cherish for a lifetime. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky with strokes of amber and rose, the Queen bid the children farewell, leaving a legacy much like the playground itself, a place of joy, laughter, and unity. Peppa waved until the Queen's silhouette faded into the twilight. Once upon a time, in the bustling town of Peppa Town, Peppa Pig was thrilled. Her teacher, Madame Gazelle, had announced a school trip to the Grand Museum of Peppa Town. Peppa's brother, George, was equally excited, especially because there was a dinosaur exhibit. "Hooray, dinosaurs!" George exclaimed as they prepared for the trip. The bus ride was filled with chatter and enthusiasm as Peppa and her friends sang songs and imagined the wonders they would soon explore. On arrival, Madame Gazelle guided the class through the grand entrance of the museum, where a giant stone dinosaur stood towering over them. George's eyes widened in awe. Their first stop was the ancient Egypt section. Here, they saw incredible artifacts, including mummies and golden treasures. Peppa's friend, Susie Sheep, was fascinated by the shiny jewels. Next, they ventured into the art gallery filled with paintings, sculptures, and more. Peppa tried her best to mimic the poses of the statues, making everyone burst into laughter. As they moved along, Madame Gazelle pointed out a special illusion exhibit. Peppa and her friends were amazed by the optical illusions that tricked their eyes and made them giggle. There was a special room where they could create their own shadow art against colorful lights. Peppa and George made dragon-shaped shadows, imagining grand dragon tails. Their last stop was George's favorite, the dinosaur exhibit. Life-size dinosaur models stood proudly amongst the displays, each with information boards telling fascinating stories about the past. George took out his toy dinosaur, Rexy, and introduced him to every dinosaur model. Despite the excitement, George was very careful, always listening to Madame Gazelle's reminders about keeping safe. As the day came to an end, Peppa and her friends gathered by the large museum doors. Madame Gazelle asked the children what their favorite part of the day was. Peppa said she loved the statues, Susie was still eager for jewels, and George, of course, couldn't stop talking about dinosaurs. Getting back onto the bus, Peppa looked forward to another trip someday, feeling happy about all she had learned and experienced at the museum. She thought to herself how wonderful it was to explore the past and its wonders with her beloved friends. One fine morning, the pig family prepared for an extraordinary adventure. Peppa had dreamt of exploring a world beyond their own, and today was her chance. Daddy Pig had discovered a portal that led to a magical place known as Pandora, where creatures and landscapes of myriad colors awaited. Excitedly, Peppa and George donned their explorer outfits, while Mummy Pig prepared their packed lunch. Daddy Pig, with a twinkle in his eye, opened the portal, and they all stepped into a world that shimmered with bioluminescent wonders. As they walked down a path lined with luminescent flora, a majestic flying creature spiraled above them. "Look, it's an egret!" shouted George in glee. Peppa's eyes widened with amazement as they crossed a floating rope bridge leading to the Nausicaa tribe's village. The Nausicaa greeted them graciously, fascinated by the curious visitors from the other world. Peppa and George were introduced to the ways of the Nausicaa. They met Neytiri, who took them under her wing. She showed them how to connect with nature through the Tree of Souls. "Feel it, Peppa," Neytiri said softly. As Peppa touched the roots, she felt a gentle vibration and heard distant whispers of the tree's secrets. Meanwhile, paintings of everyday life of the Nausicaa came alive before their eyes, illustrating the tale of harmony. Enthralled, Peppa realized that even though Pandora was so different from her world, the love for home and family remained the same. Their day in Pandora continued into the evening, where Peppa and George joined in the joyous festivities with the Nausicaa children. They learned their chants and joined their dance, but as the sun set and Pandora's nighttime beauty unfurled, Daddy Pig reminded them it was nearly time to return. With hearts filled with new stories to share, Peppa tightly held George's hand. "Can we visit again, Daddy?" she asked hopefully. Daddy Pig chuckled. "Perhaps on another adventure, Peppa." With that, they waved a cheerful goodbye to their new friends and stepped back through the portal, returning home just in time for bedtime. In the tranquil town of Peppa Pig's world, a new building had been under construction for months, and today was the grand opening of the Peppa Pig Hospital, a project spearheaded by Peppa herself. Peppa, with her infectious enthusiasm and spirited heart, had always dreamt of making a difference in her community. The day of the opening was bright and sunny, perfect for the occasion. Peppa, wearing a new white coat and a nurse's cap, was just a bundle of excitement. Her family, Mummy Pig, Daddy Pig, and George, were all there to support her. Alongside them was Peppa's trusted friend, Susie Sheep. The townsfolk gathered around the entrance of the new hospital building, eager to see what surprises the day held. Peppa, standing on a little stage set up outside, cleared her throat and addressed the crowd with her usual joyful snorts. "Hello, everyone. I'm so happy you're all here. It's been my dream to build this hospital." With that, she cut the ribbon, and the doors swung open. Inside, the hospital was bustling with excitement. Dr. Brown Bear, who was going to be the chief physician, stood inside, ready to give everyone a tour. "This is the reception area." He pointed out to a sea of smiling faces. Peppa led the way, showing off each part of the hospital, from the children's ward, decorated with colorful murals, to the cafeteria where her brother George was particularly excited to see the jelly and custard snacks. As the day wore on, people explored and marveled at the facilities, and Peppa was delighted to see the joy and confidence in the eyes of her friends and family. By the end of the day, people were chattering happily about the hospital and how it would help the community. As the sun started to set, Peppa stood at the hospital's entrance, looking at the playful colors of the building she had helped create. She knew that this hospital was just the beginning of her adventures in spreading happiness and health. In a quaint corner of a bustling town existed a colossal indoor play area, a veritable dreamland for children and a sanctuary from the unpredictable British weather. Known fondly among locals as Peppa Pig's giant play haven, This venue promised adventure, fun, and laughter galore. The play area spanned 2 floors with a maze of tunnels, soft climbing walls, slides of varying thrill levels, and a ball pit so deep that it swallowed giggles and squeals in its bouncy embrace. At its heart was a gigantic structure, a lifelike replica of Peppa's cozy little house from the beloved television series. Upon entering, families were greeted by Miss Rabbit, whose friendly demeanor and authoritative grasp of managing children kept everything in smooth harmony. Parents felt relaxed, knowing Miss Rabbit was overseeing the safety and fun. She guided them past the cloakroom where Mummy and Daddy Pig's characters appeared in vibrant murals, offering advice on taking off shoes and tucking away loose items before jumping into the fun world within. On the first floor, children ventured into Peppa's house. In one room, kids eagerly played dress-up, donning costumes of their favorite characters, while a make-believe tea party with stuffed friends ensued in another. George's Dinosaur Den was a particular hit, a shadowy hideout furnished with rubbery dinosaur replicas and low lighting, sparking wild imaginations. The winding slides spiraled from the top floor to the ground, offering a thrilling descent past LED-lit stars, simulating Peppa's ventures to outer space. Giggling children exited into a grand inflatable Peppa, which hugged them as they bounced safely away. While children reveled in joyful play, parents savored specialty coffees from Café B. Susie Sheep, a haven with views overlooking the pandemonium of happy energy. There was also a space for quieter activities like book readings and puzzle assemblies, offering respite for tired little minds. Weekends often brought themed parties, where sugar, fairy dust, and pirate treasure hunts became all the rage, hosted by character mascots who brought stories to life and made playtime all the more memorable. Peppa Pig's giant play haven was not merely a play area but an experience designed to engage, entertain, and eternalize happy memories of childhood and bonding. On the drive home, small voices often exclaimed from their booster seats, "Can we come again, please?" And parents, remembering their delicious lattes amid the chaos, could not help but smilingly agree. Peppa Pig, the beloved animated character, embarked on a grand tour of the United Arab Emirates. Peppa, known for her adventurous spirit and joyful disposition, was thrilled to explore the rich culture and stunning landscapes of the UAE alongside her family. The tour kicked off in Dubai, where Peppa and her family marveled at the grandeur of the Burj Khalifa. They rode the elevator to the top, filling their eyes with the breathtaking views of the city below. Peppa squealed with excitement as she captured her memories with George, her little brother, against the skyline. Next, they visited the Dubai Aquarium and Underwater Zoo. George, fascinated by the various sea creatures, tugged at Mummy Pig's hand every time he spotted a shark. Peppa couldn't resist splashing about imaginary puddles as they walked through the glass tunnel surrounded by marine life. Their journey continued to Abu Dhabi, where they found themselves enthralled by the majestic Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque. Peppa admired the intricate designs and enjoyed the peaceful ambience. Daddy Pig, with his interest in architecture, explained to Peppa and George the unique features of the mosque structure. A visit to the UAE wouldn't be complete without experiencing the desert. Peppa's family hopped into a 4x4 vehicle for a thrilling dune-bashing adventure. The golden sands extended as far as the eye could see, and Peppa felt as if she were in a colossal sandbox. They stopped to try sandboarding, and though Peppa tumbled, she laughed it off, realizing that falling was all part of the fun. Concluding their tour in Sharjah, Peppa and her family enjoyed a visit to an authentic Emirati cultural village. Peppa learned to dance a traditional Emirati dance, clapping along with the rhythm, which sent George into fits of giggles. They tasted local delicacies, and Peppa, always a fan of trying new things, found herself fond of the sweet, sticky dates offered. As the sun set on their final day in the UAE, Peppa promised that she would share her wonderful stories back home with all her friends. filled with memories and inspired by the UAE's blend of tradition and modern marvels. Peppa and her family boarded their plane, waving goodbye to the Arabian Nights, already dreaming of their next adventure. Peppa Pig was both nervous and excited as the big airplane touched down in Paris. It was the second stop on her world tour, and she had been looking forward to it all week long. Accompanied by her little brother George, their parents Mommy Pig and Daddy Pig, the family had planned a week of sightseeing, tasty treats, and squeaky adventures in the City of Lights. Once they settled into their cozy hotel, Peppa could hardly contain her excitement. "What should we do first?" she squealed, hopping up and down. Daddy Pig chuckled, opening the map. "We have lots to see. How about starting with a visit to the Eiffel Tower?" he suggested, to which everyone agreed enthusiastically. As they arrived at the foot of the majestic Eiffel Tower, both Peppa and George gazed up in awe. "It's taller than I imagined," George squeaked, clutching his dinosaur toy. Mommy Pig took photos while Daddy Pig tried to explain the history behind the iconic structure, though Peppa was more interested in whether they could climb to the top. The family ascended the tower, taking in the beautiful panoramic view of Paris. With the wind gently blowing through their ears, Peppa raised her arms, pretending to fly. "Look, I can see everything from up here," she exclaimed with a giggle. After the exciting tower visit, they wandered the streets, enjoying the aroma of freshly baked croissants and baguettes from the local boulangeries. Peppa insisted they try some, and soon they were all sitting at a quaint little cafe, savoring the delicious treats and watching Parisians go by. Next, they visited the enchanting Musée d'Orsay, where the family found themselves immersed in a world of art. Peppa made a funny face imitating a famous sculpture, making everyone laugh. Her favorite part was seeing the paintings come to life in her imagination, where she envisioned herself as a character within the artworks. As evening fell, Peppa's family took a relaxing boat ride along the river Seine. The lights of Paris lit up, and Peppa felt a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. "Paris is magical," she whispered to George, who had fallen asleep in her lap, still holding on to his toy dinosaur. The first day in Paris was a success, full of laughter and learning, and Peppa couldn't wait for what the rest of the tour had in store. Tomorrow, the adventure would continue with another layer of fun and discovery, a journey to remember forever.
Once upon a time in the cozy town of Oinkville, where every little piggy lived in harmony, there was a charming family of pigs called the Piggy Sons. Daddy Pig, Mummy Pig, Peppa Pig, and her little brother George loved spending weekends together, especially when they turned their living room into a home cinema. On one bright sunny Saturday, Peppa and George were busy drawing and coloring while Mummy Pig flipped through a book of DIY cinema projects. She found the perfect idea to transform their simple living room into a magical cinema experience. "Let's have a movie night," Mummy Pig exclaimed with excitement. Peppa and George squealed with delight, imagining how fun it would be. First, Daddy Pig agreed to help set up the nifty projector they borrowed from Grandpa Pig. It looked like a treasure chest, and when opened, it projected paper boats on the walls, just like Grandpa used to tell stories about his river adventures. Peppa and George watched in awe as the living room turned into a ship sailing under the stars. Mummy Pig and Peppa created a comfy seating area with lots of cushions and their favorite blankies, while George gathered everyone's squishy toys to cuddle during the film. They worked together to hang fairy lights along the curtains, making it feel like glittering fireflies dancing around them. But what's a cinema experience without some snacks? With squeaky giggles, Peppa and George helped Mummy Pig pop popcorn that smelled delicious and buttery. Daddy Pig sneakily grabbed some chocolate. They poured the popcorn into colorful bowls and made delightful pink lemonade, George's favorite. As the sun dipped below the hills, the Piggisons' home cinema was ready. Peppa couldn't decide what to watch, so Daddy Pig suggested their family adventure movie from when they visited the fun fair. Watching themselves eat cotton candy, ride the Ferris wheel, and splash in puddles was a brilliant idea. They all laughed, cheered, and sometimes George covered his eyes when giant teddy bears appeared on screen. Halfway through their film, a surprise visitor showed up. It was Susie Sheep bringing homemade cookies. Peppa and George were overjoyed and quickly made space on their cushion seats for Susie. They giggled at each other's funny faces and together watched the rest of the movie like it was the best cinema in the whole wide world. Afterwards, with sleepy but happy eyes, Peppa whispered, "This was the best night ever, Mummy." Everyone agreed. As Daddy Pig carried George to bed and Mummy Pig tucked Peppa in, they dreamt of their next family cinema adventure, maybe to the moon or even a magical forest. And so, the Piggy Sons' one-night cinema came to an end, but the memories they made would last lifelong. Oinkville fell silent under the cozy blanket of night, with stars peeping through the windows like little sequin dreams waiting to be dreamed.
Peppa Pig was beyond excited. After traveling around the world with her family and friends, England was the final destination on their grand tour. Peppa, George, Mummy Pig, and Daddy Pig had enjoyed many adventures in different countries, experiencing a variety of cultures, food, and languages. Their first stop in England was London. Peppa had always heard about the famous Big Ben, the Tower of London, and the double-decker buses. As the family traveled through the city, Peppa couldn't stop looking around with wide eyes. "Look, Mummy, there's the London Eye," she squealed, pointing at the large Ferris wheel near the river. Mummy Pig smiled. "Yes, Peppa, and we'll get to ride it soon." George was particularly thrilled to visit the Natural History Museum. The enormous dinosaur skeletons fascinated him, and he spent the entire visit roaring like a T-Rex, much to everyone's amusement. Daddy Pig, meanwhile, was eager to see the crown jewels at the Tower of London. He marveled at the sparkling crowns and felt a bit like a king himself. The next day, they traveled to the picturesque countryside. Here, Peppa and George met real sheep and learned to climb over stiles. They enjoyed a picnic by a babbling brook, listening to the birds chirping in the trees. "This is even better than the city," Peppa admitted, feeling the soft grass beneath her feet. In Stratford-upon-Avon, Peppa learned about Shakespeare, though she was only particularly interested in the fact that he had written some funny plays featuring fairies. And in Oxford, the sight of the magnificent old university buildings made Mummy Pig nostalgic about her own school days. Their journey through England concluded with a visit to Stonehenge. As the sun set behind the ancient stones, Peppa thought about all the amazing things she had seen on her world tour. She felt lucky to have learned so much about the world and her own home country. As the Pig family made their way back home, Peppa knew she had stories to tell her friends for days. Traveling was wonderful, but it felt good to return, enriched by the memories and experiences they had gathered along the way. Peppa Pig and her family were over the moon when Daddy Pig announced that they were going on a world tour. Their first stop was Amsterdam, a city known for its canals, colorful tulips, and vibrant atmosphere. The whole family was excited about this new adventure. Peppa, George, Mummy Pig, and Daddy Pig packed their bags and flew across the skies to experience the wonders this Dutch city had to offer. Upon arriving, the Pig family was greeted by Mr. Bull, who was there for a business trip about canal construction. Mr. Bull offered to show them around. Their first adventure in Amsterdam was a delightful canal cruise. The crisp air and scenic views amazed Peppa and George, who giggled cheerfully whenever a duck quacked by. Daddy Pig was intrigued by the historical buildings, and Mummy Pig was enchanted by the beauty of the floating flower market. After the cruise, Mr. Bull took them to a traditional cheese market. Peppa and George gasped in awe at the vast assortment of cheeses. They tried tasting different cheeses, exclaiming each time how delicious they were. But George, overwhelmed by the variety, accidentally knocked over a wheel of cheese. Everyone laughed as Mr. Bull quickly caught it with his big, steady hands. In the afternoon, they visited the Van Gogh Museum. Peppa was fascinated by the paintings, but insisted too much on recreating them herself right there in the museum. A friendly museum guide noticed Peppa's enthusiasm and offered her and George some coloring books and crayons. The museum inspired Peppa to imagine her own painting series, Peppa's Art Gallery. Peppa and George, however, were fixated on a dessert called poffertjes, which left the little piggies with flour-dusted snouts. As they headed back to their hotel, Peppa sighed happily. Amsterdam is amazing. What a wonderful start to our world tour. Mummy and Daddy Pig smiled as they tucked Peppa and George into bed, dreaming of their next stop on this extraordinary journey. Little did they know, this adventure would be filled with even more surprises, laughter, and exploration across the globe. Peppa Pig was thrilled. Her family had embarked on a world tour, and their next stop was the vast and vibrant land of Australia. As their plane descended over the sprawling landscapes, Peppa eagerly pressed her nose against the window, marveling at the diverse scenery below. Upon arrival, the pig family was warmly greeted by Kylie Kangaroo and her family. Peppa was particularly excited to see her friend again. Kylie was a sprightly kangaroo with a knack for adventure. Today, she had planned something marvelous, a visit to the famous Great Barrier Reef. As they traveled, Peppa and Kylie chatted enthusiastically about Australian wildlife. Peppa was keen to learn all about kangaroos, koalas, and kookaburras. Kylie explained the uniqueness of each animal, her explanations punctuated by her infectious laughter. Finally, they reached the reef, where a snorkeling adventure awaited them. Suiting up in their colorful gear, Peppa and Kylie giggled with excitement as they splashed into the warm ocean waters. As Peppa peered beneath the surface, she was awestruck by the kaleidoscope of marine life. Exotic fish of every hue darted between the corals, and a gentle turtle swam by, seemingly waving a flipper in greeting. The beauty of the underwater world left Peppa speechless. After their aquatic exploration, the families gathered for a delightful beach picnic. They feasted on a spread of fresh fruits and sandwiches, all while sharing stories under the shade of towering palm trees. Peppa listened intently as Kylie and her brother Joey regaled her with tales of their bushwalking escapades and bike adventures across the outback. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, Peppa reflected on her day. Her visit to Australia had been nothing short of magical. She had learned so much and made unforgettable memories with her Australian friends. Promising to one day return, Peppa bid farewell to Kylie, already excited for the next leg of her world tour. As the pig family boarded their plane that night, Peppa closed her eyes, still filled with the wonder of Australia. She dreamt of new adventures in far-off lands, each promising unique experiences and friendships just like the one she had found here in the land down under. Peppa Pig woke up to a bright and sunny morning, her heart buzzing with excitement. Today was the day Peppa, her brother George, and her family were visiting the adventure park, a place with endless fun and thrilling rides. As she finished breakfast, her father, Daddy Pig, reminded everyone to bring their hats and sunscreen. "It's a sunny day," he declared with a smile. The family piled into their little red car, with Daddy Pig behind the wheel, heading towards the adventure park. Along the way, Peppa and George sang their favorite songs, their spirits as high as the bright blue sky above. "We're going on adventure," George squealed, clapping his little hands. Mommy Pig chuckled, reminding them to save some energy for the park. Upon arriving at the adventure park, Peppa's eyes widened at the sight of colorful rides and stalls brimming with treats. The air buzzed with laughter and joyful screams, promising a day filled with exploration and joy. Their first stop was the Ferris wheel. Peppa held George's hand as they climbed into their seat, and soon, they were gently rising above the park. "Look, George," Peppa pointed out. "You can see everything from up here." George giggled, his eyes darting from one colorful ride to another. Next, they visited the bumper cars. Daddy Pig seemed to become as much of a child as George, steering the car with exaggerated turns, delivering bump after bump. Peppa and Mommy Pig couldn't stop laughing, making the experience as enjoyable as it was bumpy. Lunchtime brought a delightful picnic under a shady tree. Munching on sandwiches and sipping juice, Peppa couldn't help but ask what they would do next. Mommy Pig suggested the carousel, and soon enough, Peppa was riding a bright pink horse, waving to George, who was riding a giraffe beside her. As the day drew to a close, they decided to visit the big slide. George was a little apprehensive, clutching Peppa's hand tightly. "It's okay, George," Peppa reassured him. "We can do it together." With a shared giggle, they spiraled down the slide, landing in a heap of giggles at the bottom. Leaving the park, Peppa felt tired but blissfully happy. Mommy Pig asked, "Did you enjoy your day, Peppa?" Peppa nodded eagerly. "Oh yes, Mommy. Adventure Park is the best." As the car rolled back towards home, George, already half asleep, murmured his agreement. Daddy Pig added, "We must do this again." And with the setting sun painting the sky pink and purple, Peppa couldn't agree more. In the cozy town of Peppa Town, where laughter echoed down every lane, lived the lovable pig family. Peppa Pig, the curious and adventurous young piggy, had a special wish: to witness a magical snowfall. Up until now, Peppa Town had always experienced mild weather, the kind where leaves barely curled and raindrops felt like gentle whispers. But Peppa longed for the frosty wonderment she had heard about from Grandpa Pig's stories. One chilly afternoon, as snow was a rare spectacle in Peppa Town, Peppa shared her greatest wish with her family. "Mummy Pig, Daddy Pig, can we see the snowfall for my birthday?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with hopeful excitement. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig exchanged knowing glances. They wanted to make this dream come true for Peppa. As if by magic, a news bulletin interrupted Daddy Pig's evening show, announcing an unusual weather change forecasted for Peppa Town. "Heavy snowfall expected tonight," the weatherman declared, leaving Peppa bouncing with joy. The whole family got ready for the chilly spectacle. Peppa, George, Mummy Pig, Daddy Pig, and even Grandpa and Granny Pig wrapped themselves in snug scarves and bobble hats. The clock ticked closer to bedtime, and as if the weather gods listened to Peppa's little wish, flurries began to fall. Delicate snowflakes danced through the night air, twinkling under the street lamps. Peppa and George raced outside into the crisp night, their boots crunching through the frosted grass. They twirled, laughed, and caught snowflakes on their snouts, making the most of this unexpected miracle. Snow angels filled the garden, and snowballs whizzed past as the pig family indulged in wintry activities. All of Peppa Town seemed enchanted. The rare snowfall had turned their familiar town into a mystic, white landscape. As Peppa lay on her back, gazing at the swirling sky, she felt contentment swelling in her chest. It was everything she had imagined and more. Turning to George, Mummy Pig, and Daddy Pig, she sighed happily. "This is the best birthday ever." The night ended with mugs of warm chocolate and the promise of more adventures. But for now, Peppa's wish was fulfilled, her heart warmed by the snow's soft embrace, and the love of her family wrapped around her like a cozy blanket. Peppa Town would always remember Peppa's last wish as the magical night when dreams came true under a blanket of snowflakes dancing through the starry Peppa Town skies. One bright morning, Peppa Pig was bursting with excitement as she hopped around the living room with a flyer in her hand. "Mummy, Daddy, look! There's a jungle theme park opening today," she exclaimed. Daddy Pig chuckled. "A jungle theme park? That sounds like an adventure. Shall we go and explore?" Mummy Pig nodded in agreement, and soon the whole family was packed in the car, heading towards Jungle World. Arriving at the theme park, Peppa was spellbound. Thick greenery surrounded them, and the sound of exotic bird calls filled the air. At the entrance, A friendly park ranger waved a cheerful hello. "Welcome to Jungle World," he greeted, handing Peppa a map. "You'll find lots of fun activities to explore." The pig family first ventured to the treetop trail, where they got to walk on swinging bridges high above the ground. Peppa squealed with delight. "I feel just like a monkey." George toddled behind, clutching his toy dinosaur, utterly fascinated by the view. Next, they headed to the waterfall rapids, a thrilling water ride that took them splashing and splishing through the jungle rivers. "Whee!" cried Daddy Pig as they skidded down another rapid, his glasses askew and a big smile on his face. As they strolled towards the safari area, Peppa noticed a special activity booth. "Look, we can help plant a tree." Together, the family dug a small hole and planted a young sapling. "This will grow big and strong, just like us," Mummy Pig said, wiping her hands and smiling proudly. After a hearty picnic lunch, they enjoyed the Animal Encounter show, where Peppa and George got to see exotic animals up close. George was particularly enchanted by the sight of a baby elephant, though he momentarily mistook its trunk for another dinosaur. As the sun began to set, the pig family made their way towards the exit, with memories of treetop walking, thrilling rapids, and newfound friends fresh in their minds. "I love Jungle World," Peppa declared, happy but sleepy, as she snuggled into her car seat. With the car pulling away, Peppa looked back at the park, dreaming of new adventures and perhaps planting another tree. "We'll come back soon, Jungle World," she whispered, her eyes closing as the rhythm of the road carried her to sleep. Peppa Pig and her friends were eager to embark on a new adventure. It was a bright and sunny day, perfect for exploring the Enchanted Forest, a place filled with towering trees, vibrant flowers, and the sweet songs of woodland creatures. Peppa, George, Susie Sheep, and Danny Dog set out together, their spirits high and hearts ready for whatever wonders awaited them. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon a curious map laying on the forest floor. Peppa picked it up, her eyes widening with excitement. "Look, everyone," she squealed. "It's a treasure map." The map promised the discovery of a hidden treasure at the heart of the forest, marked by an X. With newfound determination, the group followed the map's winding path. They leapt over babbling brooks and played hide and seek among the whispering trees. Along the way, they encountered Mr. Fox, who was selling some tasty trail snacks. "Would you like some forest berries to keep you energized?" he asked. Peppa and her friends gratefully accepted, munching contentedly as they continued on their way. As the afternoon sun cast golden hues through the forest canopy, the children finally reached the clearing marked by the X. There, amidst the moss-covered stones, was an ancient oak tree with a curious door at its base. "This must be it," Susie declared. Opening the small wooden door, they found a quaint treasure chest nestled within. Inside was a collection of magical acorns, each shimmering with a soft glow. "These aren't ordinary acorns," Peppa exclaimed. "They're magical. We must share them with everyone." The friends carefully took some acorns for everyone back home, ensuring they left plenty for the forest creatures. As they made their way back, they reminisced about their day's adventure, their imaginations fueled with tales of magic and mystery. Upon returning to their homes, Peppa and her friends shared the magical acorns with their families and friends, spreading wonder and joy throughout their community. Their adventure in the Enchanted Forest was one they'd never forget, a magical tale of friendship, discovery, and the enchantment of a place where imaginations could soar free. Once upon a time, in a quaint little town resided a curious young pig named Peppa. Peppa was not your ordinary pig. She harbored a deep fascination with the stars shining above every night. Enthralled by stories of astronauts and adventures in space, she often dreamed about visiting the stars. One evening, while peering through her little telescope, Peppa stumbled upon a peculiar twinkle far brighter and different from the rest. It seemed to beckon her, eager to embark on an adventure. Peppa hurriedly told her family about her plan to reach the stars. Although they were hesitant and fearful, they knew Peppa was determined and would need their support. With their encouragement, Peppa sought the help of Grandpa Pig, known for his ingenious inventions. Grandpa Pig revealed a surprising secret. He was working on a whimsical rocket ship hidden in his shed. Overwhelmed with excitement, Peppa joined him, and together they worked to get the rocket ready. The shed buzzed with anticipation as the days went by, filled with the sound of hammers, droning of drills, and clatter of wrenches. Finally, the rocket was prepared, painted bright red with shining white wings. On a moonlit night, with her heart pounding and the night sky looming above, Peppa bravely strapped herself in. Her family gathered in the backyard to watch her ascent, waving and cheering her on. As the rocket roared and lifted off the ground, Peppa's eyes glimmered with elation. The town became a tiny beneath her as she soared higher and higher. She experienced a sense of weightlessness and marveled at the astounding view. Reaching the edge of space, Peppa was greeted by the spectacular expanse of twinkling stars. They danced around her as if welcoming their newest friend. Peppa used her telescope to look even further into the depths of space, captivated by its endless wonders. Though visiting the stars was thrilling, Peppa knew her family awaited her back home. With a heart full of memories and a promise to return, she piloted the rocket back to Earth. Back home, her family rejoiced with relief and pride, eager to hear all about her stellar journey. Peppa's first adventure to the stars was a story they would tell for generations. It kindled a spark in her heart that would lead to many more adventures, reminding everyone that dreams can indeed reach the stars. It was a bright and sunny day in Peppa Pig's neighborhood, and she couldn't wait to play outside. Today, Peppa had a special plan. She and her friends would play astronauts exploring the stars. Peppa, with her boundless imagination, gathered her friends George, Susie Sheep, and Danny Dog in the garden, where they set up their pretend spaceship. "Welcome to Peppa's spaceship, ready for takeoff," Peppa announced proudly. The others climbed aboard their cardboard ship, decorated with stars, planets, and hand-drawn control panels. George, clutching his space helmet, a colander from the kitchen, said in his tiny voice, "I'm ready for the moon." First, they visited the moon, where Peppa pretended to be the captain, bouncing lightly on the grass to simulate walking in low gravity. "Look at my big moon jumps," she shouted with glee. Susie Sheep collected moon rocks, actually small garden stones, while Danny Dog pretended to plant a flag with their logo, a smiling face drawn on a handkerchief. As the day continued, they set their sights on Mars. "Red planet, here we come," Danny barked bravely. Peppa narrated their journey through space, making whooshing sounds to mimic the cosmic winds. George, spotting a pretend Martian, whispered excitedly, "A space friend," and offered it a pine cone as a gift. The hours stretched as they explored further, imagining Saturn with its rings made of hula hoops. They imagined Jupiter, the giant planet, painted as a mural by Peppa and her friends using colorful chalk on the driveway. As the playtime neared its end, Mummy Pig called from the house. "Time to come inside for snacks, astronauts." Peppa and her companions, exhausted but joyful, returned to Earth, where Mummy Pig had prepared a moon-shaped platter of cheese and crackers. Gathered around the kitchen table, Peppa asked, "Can we play astronauts again tomorrow?" The others nodded eagerly, already dreaming of their next interstellar adventure. As they munched on their snacks, tales of stars, planets, and galaxies filled the room, demonstrating that with imagination, even the simplest day can turn into an extraordinary adventure. Once upon a time in the charming village of Puddletown, a little pig named Peppa woke up feeling extra special. Today was going to be a magical story day at school, where everyone in Madame Gazelle's class would share their favorite fairy tales. Peppa was very excited, having prepared a story about a fairy and her garden. During breakfast, Peppa told her family about her plan. "I'm going to tell the story of Fiona the Flower Fairy," she declared, her eyes twinkling with excitement. "She lives in a beautiful garden and tends to the flowers with her magical wand." "That sounds lovely, Peppa," said Mummy Pig, smiling. "I'm sure everyone will love it." After breakfast, Peppa tucked her storybook under her arm and headed to school with George. George, her little brother, was equally excited to hear all the stories. The sun was shining brightly, and the whole village was buzzing with anticipation. In the classroom, Madame Gazelle gathered all the children in a circle. "Today is the magical story day," she announced. "We will listen to wonderful tales from each of you." Peppa sat beside her friends, Susie Sheep and Danny Dog, listening as each of her classmates shared their stories. Pedro Pony spoke of a brave knight, Rebecca Rabbit enchanted them with a story of a talking tree, and Emily Elephant spun a tale about a friendly giant. When it was Peppa's turn, she stood up proudly and opened her storybook. "Once upon a time, in a meadow filled with colorful blooms, lived Fiona the Flower Fairy," she began. Her classmates listened intently, imagining the whimsical garden with its countless flowers and Fiona's wand sparkling under the sun. As Peppa narrated, it seemed as though the classroom transformed, with petals softly falling from the ceiling and a light breeze tickling everyone's cheeks. Peppa's voice was so captivating, it felt as if they were all there in the fairy's magical garden. When Peppa finished her story, her classmates burst into applause. "That was magical, Peppa," cried Susie. "Thank you," Peppa blushed. "I felt like I was really there." As the day came to an end, Madame Gazelle commended all the children. She gave everyone a golden star. "Today, we all had a touch of magic," she said with a gentle smile. Peppa went home thrilled, her heart full of joy. She realized that stories had the power to transport them to wondrous places and spark their imagination.
Once upon a time in the sunny town of Peppatown, there lived a spirited and joyful pig named Peppa. Peppa loved having adventures with her friends and family, especially when the sun was shining bright and the skies were blue. One day, Peppa had an exciting idea. "Let's have a picnic party in the park," she squealed with delight. Her little brother George, with his favorite toy dinosaur by his side, was thrilled. "Dinosaur picnic!" he shouted gleefully. Together with Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig, Peppa and George packed a basket full of scrumptious treats and fun games. They decided to invite all of Peppa's friends to make it the most colorful and vibrant picnic party ever. First, Peppa called her best friend Susie Sheep. "Let's bring lots of colorful balloons, Susie," Peppa suggested as she hopped with excitement. Next, Danny Dog was invited, who promised to bring his merry band of bouncy balls. Rebecca Rabbit offered to share her hopscotch game, and Pedro Pony packed his bag of magical chalks for drawing fantastic pictures on the pavement. As they arrived at the park, the picnic blanket was laid out on the lush green grass. Vibrant colors from balloons and decoration danced around in the gentle breeze. There were strawberries red as fire trucks, sunflower yellow bananas, and a wiggly jelly so blue, it looked like the sky had joined the festivity. While they feasted, Peppa and her friends crafted colorful hats with rainbow ribbons, and George made a dinosaur hat, which made everyone giggle with glee. "Let's create a giant picture together," suggested Peppa, pointing at the wide pavement. Under the shining sun, they made vibrant chalk drawings of forests filled with fluffy clouds, colorful flowers, happy animals, and sparkling streams. They imagined lands where the flowers could talk and tell jokes, and where the trees could dance. As the afternoon drifted into evening, the colors of the sunset painted the sky, adding the final touch of magic to their artwork. Peppa looked around at her friends and the colorful spectacle they had created, feeling the warmth of joy tickling her snout. "This is the best picnic party ever," Peppa giggled. And it's not just because of the colors, but because all my friends are here. Everyone agreed as they packed their baskets and cleaned up their spot. As they left the park, they took one last look at their masterpiece. The friends promised to return and fill the park with more colors and laughter on another sunny day. And so, the colorful spirit of Peppa's picnic party lived on, filling the hearts of Peppa Town's little ones with cheer and creativity, inspiring them to paint the world in the happiest hues imaginable. Once upon a time in the sunny land of Puppetville, there was a cheerful little pig named Peppa. Peppa loved playing in muddy puddles, laughing with her snort, and spending wonderful days with her family and friends. But one morning, she woke up feeling quite different. Her head felt heavy, her throat was a little sore, and her snout was runny. Peppa was sick. "Mommy, Daddy," Peppa called from her bed, her voice a little croaky. Mommy Pig appeared, gently pressing her hand on Peppa's forehead. "Oh dear, Peppa, you have a fever. I think you'll need to have a rest day today," said Mommy Pig with a reassuring smile. Although Peppa loved playing outside, she nodded in agreement, knowing rest was important. Daddy Pig brought her a cozy blanket and tucked her in, while George, her little brother, peeked in with concern. "Can I help, Peppa?" George asked. "Maybe you can tell me a story, George," replied Peppa, snuggling under her blanket. And so, George began telling a tale about a brave dinosaur that battled fluffy dragons. George's voice moved Peppa into a peaceful nap. While Peppa rested, her friends came by the window to say hello and wish her well. Susie Sheep held up a colorful card she had made herself, while Danny Dog showed off a funny dance. Even though she couldn't join them, their kindness made her feel much better. Mommy Pig prepared a special lunch with Peppa's favorite foods, like macaroni and cheese and apple slices. She sipped some warm soup, which soothed her throat and made her feel a bit stronger. As the day wore on, Daddy Pig read stories about faraway places and magical lands, each one making Peppa's imagination soar. Peppa realized that even though she was sick, she could still enjoy the day with her family and friends, and that made her heart feel light. As the sun began to set, Peppa felt sleepy again. She snuggled into her bed, glad she had followed the advice to rest. Mommy Pig and Daddy Pig kissed her goodnight, and George whispered, "I hope you feel better by morning, Peppa." Peppa fell asleep dreaming of happy adventures, and knowing that tomorrow would be a better day. And just like that, Peppa's sick day became not just a day of rest, but a day filled with love and care. Once upon a time, in the cozy little town of Peppaville, Peppa Pig and her brother George were playing in their backyard on a starlit night. Peppa always loved looking at the stars and imagining grand adventures. Little did she know this night would be special. Daddy Pig had brought home a brand new telescope earlier that day. "Come and look at the stars," he called excitedly. Peppa and George rushed over with wide eyes and giggles. They took turns peering through the telescope. Suddenly, Peppa saw something unusual. "Look, it's a shiny, sparkly rocket," Peppa exclaimed. As they watched, the rocket zoomed closer and closer until it gently landed right in their yard. Out stepped a friendly, colorful alien named Zorby. Zorby wore a shiny helmet and had tiny antennae that sparkled like diamonds. "Greetings, Earthlings," chirped Zorby. "I've come to invite you on a magical space adventure." Peppa and George were thrilled. "Can we go, Mummy? Daddy?" they pleaded. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig glanced at each other and smiled. "Of course you can, but be sure to come back in time for bedtime," Mummy Pig said with a wink. Peppa, George, and Zorby hopped into the rocket. The controls were covered in colorful buttons and blinking lights. Zorby pressed a big red button, and with a whoosh, they were off. Stars and planets whizzed past as they zoomed into space. Their first stop was the candy-coated planet of Sweetos. Everything was made of candy, lollipops as big as trees and gumdrops as large as boulders. Peppa and George munched on a marshmallow cloud, while Zorby zipped around on a licorice slide. Next, they visited the Rainbow Ring, a magical circle where you could make wishes. Peppa wished for everyone in the world to have a friend as nice as Zorby. At that moment, the stars twinkled even brighter. Finally, they arrived at the Starry Skies Cafe, a cozy place floating near Jupiter. As they sipped galaxy smoothies, an orange Martian band played cheerful tunes. Peppa and George danced with alien friends, laughing and floating in the zero gravity. As the clock chimed softly from Zorby's suit, it was time to return home. "Thank you for the wonderful adventure, Zorby," said Peppa and George, giving their new friend a hug. The rocket gently set down in their yard once more. Peppa and George waved goodbye as Zorby and the rocket disappeared into the night sky. "I can't wait to tell Susie Sheep about our adventure tomorrow," Peppa said, yawning as she and George headed to bed. And so, Peppa and George drifted off to sleep, dreaming of candy planets, rainbow rings, and dancing with Martians, knowing that adventures could be as big as their imagination. The magical space adventure was one that Peppa and George would never forget, and it nestled in their hearts like a twinkling star. Once upon a time in the cheerful town of Peppatonia, the little cheeky piglet Peppa Pig woke up with excitement buzzing in her curly tail. Today was a special day, not just because the sun was shining ever so brightly, but because Peppa had a thrilling plan, a perfect day planned with all of her family and friends. "Today, we will have an adventure," Peppa declared, her giggles echoing in the house. First on the list was a visit to the big playground. Along with her brother George, Mummy Pig, and Daddy Pig, they hopped in their red car, with Grandpa Pig and Granny Pig joining them in their green car. The road was lined with green fields and flowers blooming splendidly, making the drive all the more joyful as they sang their favorite songs. When they arrived, the playground was a splash of colors, filled with the laughter of children and the swoosh of swings and slides. Peppa rushed to the jungle gym, and George followed closely, dragging Mr. Dinosaur along. Mummy Pig pushed them on the swings, while Daddy Pig, with a big grin, took to the seesaw with Grandpa Pig, each bounce making their bellies jiggle with laughter. Granny Pig set up a picnic under the shade of a big oak tree, laying out sandwiches, fresh fruits, and her famous fairy cakes. After the playground, Peppa suggested a treasure hunt in the nearby forest. "We are pirates! Arr, matey!" she shouted, brandishing a twig as her pirate sword. Everyone was excited and Granny Pig handed them each a treasure map she had carefully drawn. Off they went, following clues that took them through leafy paths and around towering trees. On the adventure, they encountered friends like Susie Sheep, Danny Dog, and Rebecca Rabbit, who all joined the expedition. The treasure was hidden under a big bush, and with a loud hooray, they found it. A chest filled not with gold, but delightful colorful balloons for everyone. Once upon a time in the bright and cheery world of Peppa Pig, something exciting was about to happen. It was a sunny morning at Grandpa Pig's house, and Peppa, along with her little brother George, had come over to spend the day with him. "Hello, Grandpa Pig," shouted Peppa and George together as they jumped out of their car. Grandpa Pig welcomed them with a warm hug and a big smile. "Hello, my little piggies. I've got a fun surprise for us today," he chuckled. "We're going to make rainbow spaghetti." Peppa's eyes lit up with excitement. "Rainbow spaghetti? How do you make that?" she asked, bouncing on her toes. "You'll see," said Grandpa Pig, winking. He led them into the kitchen where a colorful array of ingredients was spread out on the table. Spaghetti, an assortment of healthy vegetables, and little bowls of natural food coloring. "First, we cook the spaghetti," Grandpa Pig instructed. Peppa and George watched in anticipation as Grandpa carefully placed the spaghetti into the bubbling pot. "Now the magic happens," Grandpa Pig announced as he drained the cooked pasta into different bowls. He then showed Peppa and George how to mix the spaghetti with the natural colors. "This one is for red," he said, adding beet juice to one bowl. "And here's blue from blueberries." The kids giggled as they watched the noodles transform into vibrant hues. Soon, the spaghetti was as colorful as a rainbow. Let's add some vegetables too, suggested Peppa. Good idea, Peppa, agreed Grandpa Pig, as they chopped up carrots, bell peppers, and broccoli to add into their rainbow creation. Peppa, George, and Grandpa Pig then sat down around the table, ready to feast on their colorful meal. Yum, yummy, it's delicious, exclaimed George, slurping up a long strand of blue spaghetti. Rainbow spaghetti is the best. Peppa clapped her hands with delight. Grandpa Pig beamed with pride. And you helped make it look magical, he said, giving Peppa and George a little pat on their heads. After finishing their meal, Peppa and George couldn't stop talking about all the fun they had making rainbow spaghetti. I can't wait to tell everyone at school, said Peppa happily. As the day ended, Peppa and George gave Grandpa Pig a big hug goodbye. Thanks for the magical day, Grandpa Pig, they said. It was my pleasure, said Grandpa Pig with a twinkle in his eye. And as the sun began to set, Peppa and George trotted happily back home, dreaming of more colorful adventures to come.